we are recording. We're live. We're getting in the mix. BBC One in the mix. We're coming live to you, talking about the next update for this channel. And here is the next update. Welcome back, everyone. It has been so long, and you know why? It's because I spent all of February in Kyiv, Ukraine. What a place. Who knew that that was even possible for us? And yet here we are. I went. It was awesome. And now I'm back and I have to share the goods. So what are the goods? You saw it in the title. I went to Chernobyl. That's right. Me and a good friend of mine, 𝘠𝘫, we traveled to Chernobyl and we basically went on a photo walk. And when I say we, I mean that she went for the experience and I went and brought film cameras. So yeah, I brought film cameras, and here's the interesting thing about the photo walk in Chernobyl is when I went there, I wanted to definitely put together this sort of like documentary style, like deeply emotional, interwoven, like, yes, Chernobyl, what does it mean to me? And what does it reflect about society and humanity as a whole, and history with the context of the socialist regime of the Soviet Union, especially as a Russian culture invading in a Ukrainian culture, and what that serves to be, and nuclear power, and what it meant for the future, and socialist realism. Instead, we're just going to turn this into a photo walk, because that's what we do with all of our videos. We take a larger idea and then we don't take enough footage, and so we turn it basically into a photo walk, and that's what we're doing today. So without further ado, let's get into the photo walk that is Chernobyl.
Не подтвердили, авария там произошла у них. Это диспетчер Припяти сказала.
So a little bit of context for you guys here. We went on a tour. The tour was 12 hours and it basically took us around the general areas of the exclusion zone of Chernobyl. So we went to a couple different locations. And the first two locations I didn't shoot any film at because honestly, this is going to sound really snobby of me. I just didn't see the artistic purpose. If I was going to take some film photos there of the first two locations, it would have been solely for documentarian purposes. Rather, I wanted to take photos that were impactful, a little more composed, and honestly, I just didn't want to waste film. I took 2 rolls of film, 𝘬𝘓 HP5+, as well as the now discontinued Fuji Pro 400H 120. Technically, the 120 isn't discontinued yet, the 35 is. The 120 should be lasting us all the way to January 2022, but we'll just see, because we all know what the film community is like. They want their all hands on deck, all hands on film at all times. Damn the costs, damn the paycheck, damn the rent. We're buying film. But memes aside, so after the 2-hour drive, we finally made it to the first checkpoint zone where they would let us into the exclusion zone. The checkpoint was called 𝘬𝘵𝘗, and that's where the police and the administration both talked to our tour guide, Sasha, and said, okay, basically you're allowed in. However, we're going to have a guy from the administration follow you the entire time, which was unprecedented for Sasha. However, we kept going on our jolly way. We would just have someone in a black trench coat with a black suitcase following us about 50 paces behind at all times, if not in the car behind us while we were in the van. Anywho, everything was still wonderful. We still had such a great time. The tour was absolutely fantastic. However, we just could not go inside anywhere. Otherwise, the administration, or the so-called situation, as we would come to call it, they would end the tour early and ruin all of our lives. And from there, we actually saw some Kazakhstan horses. They were fluffy. You get to see that they're just really these fluffy, gorgeous horses. There are only 300 of them within the exclusion zone, brought from Kazakhstan for scientific purposes, and they are now indigenous. Moving on, this is where we get to the film footage. This is where we get to the film. This is where the video really starts. And this is the 𝘬𝘐-1. It's such an exciting thing, such an exciting topic, really. So first and foremost, let's just get into the 𝘬𝘐-1, shall we? So we pull up to a gate, right? And this gate is totally Soviet looking, and they have this weird bust of Lenin, this colorful Lenin bust outside of it. So obviously we had to take a little bit of a video. I didn't take any photos of Lenin because like at that time I was just like, okay, look, there's the 𝘬𝘐-1 and there's Lenin. So let's get into the 𝘬𝘐-1. The 𝘬𝘐-1 is this massive fuck off antenna, right? And what this antenna is supposed to do is pick up radio frequencies of international ballistic missiles that would bounce off the stratosphere and head back over to the other side of the Earth, being picked up by this massive horizontal, basic like frequency catcher. Like think of dream catchers, but like more high tech and Soviet. So we walk on over to this thing. 𝘠𝘫𝘳 almost gets killed by falling snow that probably fell from over 100 feet coming off the thing. It cost billions of rubles, extremely expensive. It only worked for 15 minutes at a time because the actual like radio center that it was connected to was having so many malfunctions. Very quickly the thing was deemed useless, especially considering the fact that it was built shortly before the meltdown, so no one really got any use out of it anyways, and also considering the fact that glasnost and perestroika was just right around the corner. Okay, let's talk about the context. It's 1986 and glasnost and perestroika would start around 88, 89 as Gorbachev was coming into power and basically just systematically shutting down the oppressive past of the Soviet Union. But little did he know that that revelation and transition period of his would actually be one of the large precipitants of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Oh my gosh, too much coffee. But never too much coffee. After the Duga 1, we started heading over to Reactor 4. We took some shots on the way there, and it was really cool because you can actually see the sarcophagus, which was recently finished, over the tree line, over the horizon on the way there. And I really do think that all the snow in the area added such a cool effect to the overall trip, because when you think of Chernobyl and you see the footage or the documentaries and whatnot, you know, you're not seeing the snow. You're seeing like wildlife. You're seeing like a hot sun with a lot of greenery, and it gives you, it really does give you that overgrown feel. But to me, that's too saturated, and it takes away from the stark austerity and the stark bleakness that was the actual tragedy. So for me, I feel like going during a time of snow during the winter really helped to develop those emotions that would surround the actual happening itself. As we got closer to the Chernobyl reactor, it was absolutely wild because, you know, we were actually standing there like a football field away from it. It was a very visceral feeling. And in front of it, there's this monument that basically reads like, oh, you know, like glory to the heroes and the professionals who saved the world from utter destruction. It was very emotional. It was very moving. It was very unexpected, you know? Who expects to be a football field away from the sarcophagus? I didn't. And quite frankly, it was eye-opening because as an American, you go to Chernobyl and you're just like, oh, you know, some places are going to be radioactive and like, you know, you're going to be totally fucked if you get near them. But like, basically not at all. We had dosimeters on us most of the time. Those basically read how many microsieverts of radiation you were receiving per hour. And we got right up next to the sarcophagus and it was almost none. It was the same as being at the checkpoint 𝑑𝑦𝑡𝑘𝑖, and that it was an ambient radiation of 0.07 to 0.14 microsieverts per hour. So not really any at all. You get more radiation per hour flying from New York to London than you do spending 12 hours in Chernobyl. Moving forward, after Reactor 4, we headed over to the cafeteria. And this was really cool because it was an old Soviet cafeteria, and it was just like, you'd walk in and you'd have to test your radiation with one of these radiation machines, and it would say the word chista if you were clean, which everyone was, thank goodness, because if they weren't, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But still, just kind of like nice to know that, all right, we're on a Chernobyl tour, you can spend 12 hours in this place and like still be pretty good. We made our way upstairs to the mess hall, where there was a line of babushkas at the cafeteria serving us borscht and grechka and all these just warm, hearty foods. And me being with 𝘠𝘫𝘳 and being a Russian studies major for the past 5 years, мне нужен чай, да, конечно, мне нужен борщ, мне нужен, I need all of it. Give it to me. Give me the grechka. Give me the buttery grechka. So we had food there. I snapped a wonderful photo of 𝘠𝘫𝘳, as well as this other guy, this military personnel guy who was sitting in the background, and I thought that was a really cool photo. Not to like sit and dwell on this photo, but to me it was a very ominous and very like communicative photo that relates the past to the present, especially being in like the Soviet cafeteria where everything looks like it would have done 40 years ago, like nothing's changed. So I thought that was a pretty cool photo and I really enjoyed it. But moving on from the cafeteria, that's when we started getting into the meat meat of the journey. Yes, that's right. So we headed to Pripyat. Finally, what is Pripyat? Pripyat was the major city center. It was the Soviet city of the future at the time. It had the first supermarket, had massive buildings with very austere design. Okay, I just need you guys to understand the scope of what Pripyat was. Pripyat was supposed to be one of the most advanced cities of the entire Soviet Union. That includes Russia as well as the other Soviet bloc countries. So bearing that in mind, that's why Pripyat is so amazing to look at as an abandoned city, because it really tells a story of humanity and how the highest advancements that a regime, that a society can build and bring to the forefront of their culture and of their country as a whole can also topple so easily by the greed and hunger of the human condition, that being the Chernobyl disaster itself. The first stop we headed to in Pripyat was the cafe. And this cafe to me is very interesting because, among other things, it looks like this cafe architectural design is included in so many things. The major thing that comes to mind for me is PUBG and Metro, as well as the Duga 1, mind you, that was also in PUBG. We walked down to the pier where there used to be a ferry where, you know, it used to be green and full of people and lively, and this is where you'd spend your summer days. And now it's dead, cold, and there are dogs roaming around the place. And then down the shoreline, you can actually see the ferry that used to be there, the barge, and it is since been stuck in the river, sunken and dilapidated, dead, desolate, and rendered obsolete by its own death and decay. Very depressing, very Soviet, very Chernobyl. Funny enough, one of the guys on the tour actually asked Sasha, he goes, "Sasha, do the dogs, do they drown since they're walking all over the river?" And Sasha, of course, being Sasha, he goes, "Yes, as the water starts to melt, sometime this happen." And that was really that. From the cafe of Pripyat, we started heading into the city, and this is where things got exciting, because what was once this wonderful, thriving, sort of open space kind of area, but had become over so many years this overgrown, snowy waste. So we got to walking by some Khrushchevki, which of course are the prefab buildings that came about in the Khrushchev era, which were meant to house a lot of the soldiers and population boom after World War II. And these were surrounding the city area. So I took a couple photos of that with the 𝘖𝘓𝑅𝑑, of course. And it was around that time that my 𝘖𝘓𝑅𝑑 actually ran out, so we switched to the Pro 400H. And the funny thing is on a semi-cloudy day, especially with the latitude of Pro 400H, almost no color came out regardless. And you'll see that in the next couple photos here. Pripyat was really cool, and from there we made it back to the van, and we were going to head back to checkpoint 𝘬𝘬𝘐, which is where we started. However, we made two stops on the way back. The first stop I'm not really going to go into so much, but it's an unofficial memorial. And the second stop on the way back to 𝘬𝘬𝘐 was basically, it was a junkyard where you could view the experimental vehicles that were designed to clean up the rooftop of Chernobyl, of the reactor 4, without so many human casualties. But I didn't really take a picture of the vehicles themselves, wasn't really bothered too much. Rather, I took a picture of the sunset overneath or above a building, and to me that was special. Who knows? And from there we started driving back, and that's when we caught the beautiful that's when we caught the beautiful wasteland sunset. And that sunset was something that I was trying to capture, but there were like trees and whatnot, and I was sitting in the wrong seat, and everyone was tired and I was tired, and I was just like, I just have to capture the sunset. And like Lisa was like, she could feel my angst. She was just like, okay, this dude really wants to capture a sunset. And I was just like, look, I just want to capture this fucking sunset. Okay, give me the sun, give me the sunset, I'm gonna capture it. So I got some photos of it. They look like, they're a bit long exposure, but they give the emotional inflection of what it was to be there. So it wasn't like compositionally absolute garbage, but with the colors and with the motion blur, it really did capture this fleeting sense of bittersweet bliss that was felt after a long day exploring a world that no longer exists and going through the last bits of your film. Finally, we made it back to 𝘠𝘵𝘃, capturing the last of the sunset, moving on into blue hour. So all the snow was blue, the light coming from the sun was deep purples and pinks and magentas. And so we captured that, and this last photo, I captured the bathroom at 𝘠𝘵𝘃, and all was well. I thought that one came out pretty well, and it did. It's just a bathroom. I don't know what to tell you, okay? It's a bathroom. So yeah, you know, like I said, I definitely wanted to make a more fleshed out version of this, but if I was to do a documentary video, or if anyone was interested in doing a documentarian style like video explaining a lot of information, a lot of facts while having a lot of footage to support it, I would definitely recommend going on a more than one day excursion. I'll provide a link to anyone who's interested in the tour. It's chernobyl-tours.com. The guy heading it was Sasha. Again, this company, like these guys are absolutely phenomenal. They're on their game, on everything. They provided an immense amount of information for everyone, and just an overall phenomenal experience for the price. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you for being so patient with the video uploads. I know it's been months since my last video, and this is something a little more different. So I just wanted to thank you guys, and if you like the video and you're new here, please give me a like, give me a subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next videos, as well as all your comments, concerns, and questions. I will be available to answer them. All right, guys, I will talk to you later. Goodbye.